Hello, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode or interview, Survivors, true stories that will radically transform your life. So once again, my name is Michael, and today I'm with a good friend of mine, Abigail Hazel. And as we've been trying to do each evening is just have a discussion and hear the stories of normal everyday folk, normal everyday people who may live in the same city as you do, who are sharing how God has transformed their life. What is their journey to bring them to that point that they said, you know what, I want to serve Jesus Christ. And I'm hoping that you've been with us from the beginning. If you haven't, then welcome. And each evening, each episode, each interview is just going to draw you closer and closer to hopefully make the same decision they have, or at least the minimum. Inquire, ask questions. You know, my email is always on the screen for you to contact, to ask questions about this journey that you're hearing. So today, as I said, we've got Abigail with us, and yeah, I'm going to take it away with the same question I do with every evening. So give us a brief introduction, Abigail, who you are, where you're from, and maybe what you do or what you're doing. If you're, and I like to say in between jobs. It doesn't sound nice. You say, yeah, I'm working, right? So just give us a brief introduction.
Yeah, okay. So as you said, my name's Abigail. Abigail, I go by both most of the time. I am from Wolverhampton, been here all my life, born, raised in Wolverhampton. Come from a family of five, so two-parent household with my two siblings as well. I'm not the middle child, which I think is like the best place to be, actually. Best of both worlds that way. I'm currently working as an art therapist, mainly in schools, so working with children and teenagers as a therapist there. Sometimes work with adults as well, but as I say, mainly with children and teens. And I started that literally the beginning of this year, actually. So I graduated from uni I say graduated, everything that's been going on. Graduated last year. And yeah, been working from January this year, so it's going well. Yeah.
Good. Quickly, because when I first heard you say you're not therapist, I didn't know what that was. So for our viewers, right, what does that entail? What is an art therapist?
hmm So whenever someone asks me that, I always said the simplest way to put it is think of most people know what a counselor is.
Right, yeah.
A counselor and an artist put together. So in the session, it's like a
Right.
counseling session, therapy session, but I'll use creative materials with the client.
Wow.
So painting, drawing, sculpting. Sometimes we'll play games as well. Sometimes literally anything we kind of find in the room. Sometimes we might go outside as well, even, and use like bits of nature as well. But anything that's really creative to help the person to explore their emotions, feelings, what they're going through. That's what we do in art therapy sessions. And
Wow.
it's really great with children. Like, as I said, I work with children and teens. Like, they really latch onto it quite a lot because they're still so creative at that age. So
Right, right. And so is that for even something as serious as trauma? This can help
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, so I work with kind of low level trauma, and so most of the people I see, the children I see, have like anxiety. Some might
Okay.
be self harming, but it goes across the board. Like, so I know some people that I used to go to uni with, they'll be working in prisons, some work in hospitals, some work in schools. So it's really across the board that we work with people.
Wow.
Mm.
It's amazing. That is amazing. I never would have thought that because I haven't drawn for ages, so I used to do art and I like art, but I never would have thought that could do that. So that is amazing.
Yeah.
So share with us one interesting fact about yourself.
Um. Oh. Okay. So I have attempted to learn a total of 7 languages. So other than English, which I can talk, obviously fluently, but attempted to learn. I say attempted because I'm not fluent in any of them. 7 languages in my life so far.
Oh
Not
wow.
really out of choice most of the time because most of them are in school, but there's been a total of 7. Yeah.
Wow. What are those?
So primary school there was French, secondary school Spanish, German, and Russian. Sixth form Japanese, and then outside of school Swahili for a bit. And currently I'm learning Norwegian only because my brother he lives in Norway, married to a
Right.
Norwegian lady. So I thought once the kids come, once nieces and nephews come, I want to be able to cash
communicate
them out on
effectively.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. And share with us one of your favorite quotes. Doesn't have to be a spiritual or biblical quote. It can be if you want, but share us one of your favorite quotes.
Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes actually comes from I think I first heard it in what's the film? Coach Carter. And it was only the
Oh,
very beginning.
yeah.
It was only the very beginning of the quote that I heard. And I was like, oh, this is absolutely great. So then afterwards, I remember searching it up on Google and thinking, is there more to this? Found the whole quote and I was like, yeah, this is. I just live. This is the greatest thing I've ever read. So I'm actually going to read out the whole. It's like a bit of a paragraph. So it
Yeah,
says,
that's all right.
let me get a. Yeah, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
That is deep.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, love it.
Man, that's deep. Coach Carter. I
Yeah,
remember
it
that.
was. I
That's
think
the
it
one
was.
with the basketball.
Yeah. So in the film, I think it was only like the very first few lines. Our deepest fear is
Okay.
that we, not that we, yeah, that was at the in
Right.
the film. I was like, oh, this is like a really interesting thing they're saying here. So then I went and
Okay.
Googled it. It's like, oh yeah, love it.
All right. So next question. So have you it's kind of like a threefold. There's like three parts to this question. So number one, or the first part, I know obviously currently you're a Christian, but did you grow up in the Christian church? Um, have you always been a Christian? Was there religion in your home, not religion? Yeah. And how long have you, would you say you've been, let's say, a Christian?
Yeah. So I do come from a Christian household. My mom was raised a Christian, my dad was raised a Christian. Um, so Christianity has been a part of my life before I was even born, I guess,
Right.
since
Yeah,
the two
yeah,
of them
yeah.
weren't raised that way. So I grew up in the church. In fact, throughout my childhood, church was like such a big part of growing up, because I went to a Christian primary school,
Okay.
and then I'd go to church on the weekend, on Saturday, Sabbath, and then on Sunday I'd be at Pathfinders, which is like Scouts or Brownies, but it's linked to the church.
Right.
So literally there was a few years where every single day of the week had something to do with being a Christian, church.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so yeah, it's always been being a Christian has been literally there for the whole of my life.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I guess then officially, so I got
Okay.
baptized into the church 2006, I believe. So what's that like? 15 years official member of the church, but as I said, Christian all my life.
Okay. And would you say you had a positive experience having such, let's say, a Christian influence, your school, Christian home? So there's principles your mum, father obviously are bringing into what they're saying, discipline. And then there's church, and then there's pathfinding. So extracurricular activities as well.
Yeah.
So would you say, in your experience, was it generally a positive experience? And if it was, what are some of the things that you really did like about, the fact that there was this Christian influence? Because let me give you an example. Myself and my brother, we grew up in church.
Hmm.
And one thing we was talking about this the other day that we really loved was like the socials, the games in Sabbath evening, sunset, and we're playing socials, or in afternoon programs, because our church was full of young people, older young people. It was really, really fun. So we
Hmm.
loved afternoon programs. There may be other young people who don't have that experience, but that wasn't our experience. We remember sitting at the front. Now in the morning service, we used to sit at the back. When
Yeah,
our
yeah.
people said we would sit at the front and be clapping and getting involved because they did plays. So as a young kid, afternoon service for us was, yeah, man, we got daddy, we got to get back, got to get back, because they made it fun. So that was one of the few positive experiences I remember personally about church. But for you, you know, if you could think of some, if it was generally positive or not, what was your experience having so much Christian influence around you?
Yeah, I think generally it was quite positive for me. Like most of the lifelong friends have been because I went to church. Like that we met as babies, grew up together, so we've
Right,
been around each other like literally always.
right.
So there's that, like the friendships that I've built from
Oh,
being
great.
in that community. But also I would say on the flip side, because as I said, literally sometimes where there was some years where church was literally kind of every single day. I think
Right,
there was this kind of bubble. Not that it was a bad bubble, because you feel
right,
like in this Christian cell, you're protected.
right,
But I think for me, it almost gave some sort of like naivety to what's actually outside in the world. It's like,
right,
oh, okay, not everyone does believe something. Oh, didn't realize that. Oh, not
right,
everyone does come from like a loving home. Didn't realize that.
right.
So it
Okay.
was like, oh, once I went to secondary school, seeing all these different things, I was like, okay, this is this is new. This isn't what I've just been brought up on.
Exposed to, right.
Yeah, yeah,
I see. I see. You mentioned something that I want to plug for a minute. We're going to get to the other question about your journey, but this is all part of it. You said something there that really got my attention. You said, and it's funny you said you didn't even realize it. You said, or maybe you did. You said, um, not everybody has grown up in a loving home. Now that was interesting to me because you, subconsciously it sounded like loving home was part of your Christian experience into because your parents are Christian. So obviously, if you're loving home and they're Christian, then that's the thumbs up for God, then, isn't it? And for the religion that they're professing. Because we
mm,
do know we live in the real world where you have people who are religious on the Christian side, and their children are like, no, this ain't a this wasn't a loving home. Too
yeah,
strict, and they couldn't wait to get out of there. You
mm,
know, the discipline was really bad and whatever, right? But you had a different experience because you said loving home. So, um, yeah, unpack that a little bit because that is such a, how can I put it? Not everyone has had that. You know what I mean? And to
yeah,
have it is, don't feel bad. Like that's good you have it. Don't feel bad. That's a good thing. What you shouldn't have to go through what others have gone through. It's not nice. But yeah, unpack that a little bit. Did you see the two as the same, or was it just normal? This is a Christian, a loving home, or did you see a loving home and what your parents were saying their Christian faith as one and the same?
yeah. Well, that's interesting actually because, as I said, because I was like brought up in the church. I think especially when I was a lot younger, although like now I know that there was families in church or people in church who didn't necessarily have that loving home. I think when
Right.
I was a child, I was just like, oh yeah, everyone must, because we're all at church together, everyone's living at church, so everyone must have kind of the same home that I have.
Right.
And I think in the home as well, my parents always made sure that we did have that. Like a memory just coming to my head. We used to have family hugs. So it would literally like
Oh,
at the end of the night, it would be my little sister. She was really tiny. She would get in the middle, and then
right.
all the four of us would go around and like we'd all hug each other. So like memories like that. I'm
Oh
like, oh yeah, like
man.
that's what makes my childhood. Like yeah, it was actually really, and it was usually followed like after having worship.
Right.
So I think those things were often linked together. So I thought, yeah, Christian home. For me, it just made sense that there should be love in. If you're a Christian, then there should be love in the home. Like the two just kind of connected for me.
Yes. Oh man, that just made me feel so nice there. And 'cause obviously that was intentional. That was intentional. I'm like, man, this sounds like a movie. We need to write this movie.
Them Hallmark movies.
Yeah, we need to have this movie. There's nothing wrong with movies that have a bleak storyline. We're all different, but we need to have those feel good movies. Those feel good movies that ends with a happy ending.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? And promotes the ideal and that it is possible because this ain't a movie. And you're just mentioning just a little tiny big thing that wow, man, kudos and praise God for your parents, man. Wow,
Yeah.
that is
Mm.
amazing. So okay, um, now we're gonna get into the heart of, or try and get to the heart of the matter now, right? When it came to you making that decision, or in fact, do you make a distinction between you growing up in a Christian home, going to church, and let's say calling yourself a Christian or making the decision for G? Do you separate the two, or do you see them as just part and parcel, just the whole thing? Or do you make a distinction that, yeah, at this point, I had to make a decision in your mind?
Um, I think for the majority of like my, I guess, Christian, well, all my life then, I guess, because Christian experience, I think it's kind of been part and parcel. So it's almost as if I can't pinpoint like yes, there's been things that have happened that I've really seen God like shine and be like, okay, yeah, God, you're definitely real. Like you must be real because I can see work in my life.
Right.
At the same time, because I was raised being taught that Jesus is real, the Bible's real, this is it,
Right.
then it's kind of always been a truth for me.
Right.
I guess like a simple example would be, you know how there's like general truths, there's like, you know, the grass is green, that thing up there is called the sky. And
Right.
we learn those things when we're kids, you
Yes.
know, when we're little. And no one really grows up and then starts questioning, is that grass really green? Or, you know, is
Right.
that really called the sky? It's
Yeah.
just like a general truth that everyone accepts.
Yeah.
I think for me, like Christianity in general has kind of been that, in that, because I, as I said, learned it from when I was young, it's just been that kind of thing. Well, why would it not be true? Because it's just been something that's always been there.
Right.
So it's never been something that I've like doubted or like doubted God's existence. Like, is this true or not? I think because that foundation just kind of set up, yeah, this is
Right.
truth, and I'm going to hold on to that.
Right. Okay. And so in this experience of yours growing up in the church, was there a turning point in which you had to make a decision to accept Christ as your personal savior? Could you remember that turning point? And what do you think was it that led you to make that decision for yourself? Because you're a big woman now. You can go where you please, do what you want. You don't
Yeah.
have to. So why have you, yeah. So what was the turning point, and what were the maybe the incidences or situations that led you to that, to make that decision for yourself?
Mm. I think, well, I'll start off with, because I said, because I have always been a Christian and raised in the church, I think I used to think that because I've always like known the truth, that I don't have a testimony. So I was literally
Right,
convinced that, well, yeah, testimonies are only for people who have either come into church or you know, become Christian, or people who were in the church and then left and came back. So my
right,
thinking was, well, I haven't done any of those things, so I can't like possibly have some kind of testimony.
right.
And it was, I remember when I heard someone speaking, I think it was Dean actually,
Okay.
um, and he was preaching and he was sharing his testimony, and he said, yeah, people like hearing my testimony because how he came into church, but he said for him, the greatest testimony that he has ever heard is that of his wife's. So I was there waiting for this kind of like big, okay, you know,
I remember
what's
this.
happened? What's
Yes.
happened then? You know, what is this awesome testimony? And he said she was raised in the church, she stayed in the church, and she's literally still there.
Yep.
And for him, that's the biggest testimony. And I thought, oh my life, it's actually so true. Like there's so many things that have happened in life. You know, things happen, yet to still remain
Mm.
believing. I'm like, how can that not be a
Right.
testimony?
That's right. That's right.
So that really changed my thinking of, okay, yeah, I actually do. I can
Okay.
see times where God has actually been so real to me, and that's kind of been the turning points, I think, in my faith.
Amen.
Um, so I think like the major kind of transformation, I guess, would be when I was a teenager, kind of pre-teen into my teens. Um, I remember I used to have a real struggle with seeing my worth and how much I was valued. And it's strange because obviously we were just talking about how I was just mentioning, you know, the living family that I came from.
Yes. Yeah. This is
Um,
interesting.
yeah, so you know, you know how people say sometimes, especially I think it's especially to like fathers, you know, when you have a daughter, especially make sure you're living them, you know, giving them
Yeah.
what they need and
Yeah.
whatnot. And even though I don't dispute that at all, like I think that is so true. I don't think it always means that they're not gonna feel less than later in life. Just
Right.
because they might have all that love when they are younger, it doesn't guarantee that they're gonna have such a high self-esteem or self-worth.
Right. Right.
And simply because Satan's real and he'll come and attack them
Yeah.
anyway, like
And there's
regardless of.
outside influences as well, isn't there?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as I did have, you know, that loving family, always told me, you know, like you're loved and all that kind of things, it did come to a point, as I said, pre-teens, teens, when I just started thinking, yeah, like am I loved by people? Do I have worth? And I think it's because it's at that age where you start kind of comparing yourself to people, your friends
Right,
around you, what you look like.
right,
When the opposite sex start getting attractive, it's like, oh, but do they find me attractive? That kind of thing.
right, yeah, yeah,
So it was that age I just started thinking, yeah, I'm not really worth much at all. Um, so much so that it got to a point where um, I used to look in the mirror and actually cry because I thought you're not worth anything at all. And it was so weird because I'm thinking, where are these thoughts? Like, why are these thoughts here? Like, where is this coming from? I just remember whenever I look in the mirror, I just start automatically crying because I thought, yeah, you're ugly, you're not worth anything. Um, and I thought, if this is what you think of yourself, then obviously people who look at you are going to think the same as well because this is
wow,
you looking in the mirror. And when people do see you, they must be seeing these same kind of things. So that was kind of a real struggle for me, as I said, teenage years. Um, and even though I felt loved when I was at home, but when I would leave the house, people were like, okay, well, where's this where's it meant to come from? Like, who am I meant to get it from?
right, yeah,
Um, which led to me then seeking out from, guys. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, if they show me this attention, that means I must have some value.
right,
If
right,
they give me love, then it must mean I'm desirable. It must mean I'm worth something.
right,
So then I went down that whole road of doing stuff that I knew I shouldn't be doing because, as I said, I was raised Christian. I knew
right,
there's certain things we do and there's certain things we don't do.
right,
Um, so I just went down this road of, yeah, doing whatever just to feel some sort of worth, feel
right,
desired somehow, feel valued. Um, but it's funny because I say funny, the things I would do, it's like this vicious cycle that started happening. So I would do things that I knew I shouldn't be doing. Um, and in the moment they make me feel, oh yeah, I must be desired, I must be loved. And then straight after it would be like, bam, see, look what you've done. Like
oh,
you're really not worth anything because look what you've just done.
yeah,
And so then start feeling even worse. And then because I was feeling worse, I have to go back to the things that just made me
yeah,
feel good.
right,
Um, so yeah, it was just this real vicious cycle of not feeling worthy, not feeling desired, not feeling loved, doing things to make me have that feeling, and then feeling absolutely rubbish again. Um,
wow,
and that was a good chunk of years, like probably like, I don't know, probably up until the age of 18 maybe.
wow,
Um,
wow,
yeah,
a good long time,
yeah, and it's so funny because, as I said, during this time I was still in church,
yeah,
still up at the front sometimes doing praise team, all those kind of
yeah,
things, still involved.
yeah, yeah,
And
just
people
going through
didn't
your
necessarily,
struggle,
yeah, people didn't know what was going on because I guess I was just hiding it,
yeah,
smiling every Sabbath, be like, happy Sabbath, how are you? And do the usual.
yeah,
Um, yeah, all that time I was really struggling
wow,
to understand that God would even see me as something that's worth valuing as well.
wow,
Um, so that was, yeah, it was really, really tough few years that was. Um, and as I said, so I used to like look in the mirror and start crying. And it also got to a point where I, because I was in that vicious cycle and I didn't know how to get out of it, even though I really wanted to. Um, and I thank God that I never did start doing this, but I did have the thought to start harming myself.
wow,
Um, and it's so strange how God works in that the one thing that kept me from doing it was, at the time, I remember I had a friend who was herself self-harming, and
right,
she was coming to me for help. She's like, Abby, I'm doing this, like I don't want to do this. And so here's me thinking, okay, I'm having thoughts to do these things, but I felt like I would be such a hypocrite if I was to be trying to help her and yet doing this myself. And
wow,
so I thought, yeah, no, I can't do that. And I feel like in that moment, God was saving me from that by using
yeah,
someone else's pain to actually help me to help them, to help myself.
that's
It was it was such
wow.
a, yeah. I was like, wow, okay, God, I can see what see what you're doing. Yeah, yeah.
That is so strange. Now, boy, this is so deep. Um, Thank you firstly, because when I saw you was getting emotional, I was like, oh man. So I was like, is she gonna stop? Is she gonna move? What's she gonna do? So big respect for being vulnerable in that moment there, Abigail. How, man, how did you, I'm not going to say come away from it, because in the sense that you're never free from these temptations ever again, because sometimes that can be true and these things never plague you again, but sometimes they may come back and you just fight them and you may not be subject to them. So I'm trying to put it in a way of, if you did come out of it, explain to us, how did you come out of that thinking? And if it does come back, how do you fight? And if it doesn't come back, then we're going to say hallelujah, that's great. But if it does, and if there's been moments where it may try to creep in, try and explain to us, how do you effectively fight it? But start with, how did you initially come out? If I'm assuming you did, right, at one point. So how did you do that?
Yeah. I remember two distinctive like moments that happened that kind of really pulled me out of, as I said, that vicious cycle that was going on.
Right.
You're actually involved in one of them.
Oh, shame. Oh man, I know if I can go red, but boy, I hope don't pick it up. Oh,
So there's two. I can't remember which one happened first.
right.
But the first one was we were at, there was a group of us as youth at church.
Right.
And I said I was going through all this stuff and no one knew what was going on. And my brother, he was leading out in a youth Bible study or something like that. I think it was like a random one that was happening as well. And I remember it being about, well, I don't actually know if this was the theme of it, but I know he spoke about our value in God's eyes. And when he was speaking, I thought, okay, this is mainly for like the younger youth. I'm kind of here just to kind of help lead out. But I didn't realize how much it would actually be for me in that moment.
Right.
And I always remember this one illustration he used, which is going to stick with me forever, because it's kind of what really keeps me going at the moment whenever I do kind of have these thoughts of, oh, maybe you're not valued or not. And
Wow.
this illustration really keeps me. So he said, imagine you're going shopping, you're out to buy a pair of shoes maybe. You see the shoes that you want and they cost, I don't know, so let's say £200. And you think in that moment, even though yes, you want some shoes, even though yes, you need them, to you see the price and think, yeah, no, £200. I'm not paying that. They're not worth that much. Even
Right.
though the shop's saying they're £200, to you, they're not worth that much because you're not willing to buy them for that price. And he said, the true value of something is dependent on what someone is willing to pay for it. So even though, yes, the shop says it's £200, in your eyes, it's not worth that much. Otherwise, you would just pay it if it was worth that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he said, why not look at your own life? You might place a value on it, but what has someone been willing to pay for your life? And then he said, well, and obviously I've always known the text, John 3:16, God so loved the world, he gave his only son. And even though I'd always known it, it wasn't until that point I was like, wow, okay, so if God bought my life with his own life, that means the value of my life is literally Jesus. Like my life equals Jesus's life. And at that point I was like, what? Like, how does that make any sense at all? All this time I've been thinking, you're not worth anything, you're not valued at anything. And in my head, that was me. I was the shop putting the value that I thought, was worth in my own life. Yet he was Jesus who had already died for me. It's like, naturally, this is actually how much you're valued. This is your worth. And I was like, wow, that is so crazy to
That
me.
is powerful.
But at the same time, it made me feel quite guilty as well. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, well, I mentioned I'm an art therapist, but I also do painting on the side every now and then as well. So as a creative myself, I love that God is a creative. I love that he created the world. I love nature. So when I used to think about how I used to look at myself and just start crying, I'm thinking, God created you, and here you are crying that his work of art isn't good enough. And I felt so bad for thinking that, how could there be something that God's made, something that God has paid for, and I think it's absolutely rubbish.
Wow.
So in that moment, I felt really bad as well for thinking, oh, I'm really sorry, God. Like, I'm sorry that you've paid so much for me, and I haven't actually even valued myself.
Wow.
But yeah, that moment I was like, I think that's when I really started believing that I actually am worth something, because I really understood, yeah, my life is worth the life of Jesus. It's no matter what anyone else tells me, I know that that's my value. Even if I tell myself sometimes I'm not, it's there in his word that I actually am worth that much.
Yes. Wow. Praise the Lord, Adam. Salute.
Yeah, honestly, honestly.
Praise God, Adam, man. Praise
Yeah.
God. It's an illustration. It wasn't a sermon, an hour long. It wasn't a series. It wasn't, don't get me wrong. Of course, God uses all these things. And that's the great thing. He will use whatever he can to get our attention. And that illustration made something click for you that you needed at that moment in time. To this day that you said such powerful words, it keeps me. And when I'm tempted, certain thoughts come, that's what I go back to. And that's powerful. So I'm intrigued. What do I have to do with now?
Yeah, so the second one
This is supposed to be for the viewers. Now I'm being a bit selfish. Like, I need to be encouraged today. I'm going to get my encouragement.
So yeah, so the second one is, as I said, so I think that first one was kind of the turning point of understanding that I am worth something. But even though I then understood this, there was still because I created the habit of going back to do foolishness, even though I knew I was now worth something. It's like, well, how do I actually break out of this habit? Even though I might not want to do it, I'm still doing it because it's become such a habit for me. So I thought, well, yes, I have the understanding of I'm valued, but how does that help me? Like, how can I actually practically stop doing what I don't want to be doing anymore? So I remember you preached a sermon at church before. I can't remember the whole entirety of the sermon, but I remember afterward, you were speaking about basically God's power being us being able to access God's power. And that when we do bad things, when we sin, he doesn't ever hold it against us, in that he's going to stop giving us the power to stop doing sinful things. And so, as I said, I'd already heard that, oh yeah, God's willing to give you power. It's just general things you hear in church. But there was something about when you spoke, it just really clicked to me. I was like, wait, so I can actually stop doing these things because God is willing to give me his own power. Like, I don't have to try in my own power to not do these things. Like, God is actually the one who can work through me. So pairing those two things together of, yes, now I understand my value. Now I know that I don't actually have to put in the effort to stop. Like, God will help me to stop. Pairing those things together, that was the real like turning point for me. I was like, yeah, I don't need to be doing these things anymore. I don't need to see myself as less than anymore, because yeah, God's got me.
Wow. That's really amazing. And I echo with I remember Dean saying that. I don't know if I was in that same sermon, but he said it before. Let's assume he said it again. And that was the first time I've ever heard in all my life, up until that point, that perspective. And you're right, sometimes we, being the Christian community, Christian church, Christian people, we're guilty of putting and emphasizing only those, or to the extreme, putting those on the front who have had blatant, let's say, I want to put it in a kind way, they physically left the church, they don't go to church no more, they've done certain things, or those who didn't grow up in a Christian home necessarily, and they've come in, and so they were living a life outside, which was completely contrary, like in terms of what you do, completely contrary to God. You know, we like the stories of, oh, he used to be a gangster, now he's not. You know, from gangster to church. Do you know what I mean? You know, from prostitution to virgins. You know, it's like we emphasize these big extremes. So to the people who've never done the list of quote unquote bad things, the really bad things, who haven't smoked, who haven't drunk alcohol, who didn't do the clubbing, haven't slept around, they're sitting there and they're like, so how has God worked in my life then? Because unfortunately, there's now a comparison. Now, when you compare yourself, you're always going to feel inadequate. You see? And spiritually, there's that comparison. So I really thank God for giving Dean that perspective, because it's true. What about those who didn't? Despite the same temptations, you went to school, you didn't live underneath a rock.
Yeah.
You see, you didn't even live the rock. You're seeing and hearing certain things, and there's a certain commitment, a certain decision to say, no, I'm going to stick to my morals. No, I'm going to stick. That doesn't mean no one's perfect. We're not trying to convey that. And obviously, as we're hearing, that your vulnerability there, where somehow those negative thoughts about yourself crept in, and it held you hostage for a bit. That's not
Mm.
nice, man. And so that is your story, part of your story. One of the things that you struggled with, but then somehow God used people to get through that message of God is love.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, man, that's so powerful. That's so, so powerful, Abigail.
Hmm.
So, hmm, would you say, let me ask you this question. Has there been any major challenges um, that's almost made you quit? You might say no. We can move to the next question. And when I say quit, let me qualify quit. Maybe not coming to church, maybe not giving up on God, but maybe giving up on God. I don't know. Has there been any major challenges or that's ever made you think, should I leave? Should I stay? Have you been through that experience before?
Um,
If no, we've moved to the next one.
I
Because not
think
everybody's
that
gone through that.
I think after the first time I kind of openly shared some of the stuff that I had been through,
Mhm.
um, I think there was a temptation to feel like, okay, now I need to leave because
Oh,
people had always seen me as this girl who's grown up in church. She's the eldest daughter.
okay,
She's,
interesting.
the perfect one.
Yeah,
So I was so worried of like judgment that might come.
right.
I thought, yeah, no, I need to, I need to duck out. And now, like, I said my piece. Okay, I'm gone. People don't need to see me ever again. So that's the only like thing I can think of. Like, yeah,
That's
um,
interesting. That is very, very interesting. I'm just getting how subtle the enemy can be. The
mm,
devil, for viewers who I'm talking about the devil and his evil angels, how subtle they can weave certain ideas and thoughts where I'm like, something that you're saying that's so good, and that's being used against you to discourage you. And I just thank God, man, that you are still here. What advice would you give your younger self that was making, I wouldn't, for you wasn't making the journey, but you're on this journey? What advice would you give your younger self on being on this journey, this Christian journey of life? What if you could,
um,
you could think back, maybe let's say young, you're still young, so let's say before, yeah, at any point in your younger self, I don't know, choose an age. What advice would you give your younger self? Let's start with maybe, when you start thinking those things, what
yeah,
advice would
yeah.
you give your younger self?
I don't know if this is like advice or just like a thought that I would tell myself that there is nothing that you can do as much as you might hurt God or even hurt yourself or hurt the people around you. There's nothing that you can do that will make you any less than in his eyes. Like,
Wow.
yes, you might hurt him, yes, you might upset him, but there's literally nothing you can actually do that's going to make him love you any less.
Wow.
um and it's weird because now that I'm old, like now that I've passed that stage of life, I'm almost telling myself the flip side of that, in that, okay, Abby, there's nothing that you actually can do as well
Right.
that's going to make God love you anymore. Like, you can do all the good stuff you want,
Right.
anymore because of it. Like, he loves you as much
Right.
as he does anyway already. So it's weird. Like, yeah, those two flip. One was like more when I was younger. Yeah, there's nothing that you can do that's going to make him stop. And now it's like, yeah, there's nothing you can do to kind of make it increase.
Hmm. Man, you don't know how, well, you probably do. It's a figure. Yeah, something I don't like saying that. I don't know how to express it, but yeah, you have no idea how important to me that last bit is for Christians to understand. There's
Mm,
nothing that you can do for God in the positive that's even going to make his love augment for you even more. No, no. Because all of
mm,
that which you have was with you before.
yeah.
It wasn't any less. The outright, blatant disbeliever, whatever you want to send out, bad person, whatever, they have the love of God on them, the favor, let's call it favor, as much as somebody who is perfectly obedient through
Mm,
his grace. There's no leagues here with God. There's no, as the Bible says, God is no respecter of person.
Yeah.
You know, so that last bit, that's very, very powerful what you said there. Very, very powerful, because it's true, because we are tempted, and we are very liable, if we're not careful, to think, man, this light's coming from me now.
Yeah.
Because you do get a sense of notoriety within the church if you're being used in certain respects, especially like myself as a speaker. Do you see, that can go to your head. I'd be fooling myself if I didn't think it could. Of course it can. You see, because anything that you do that helps somebody, people are going to praise you, not in a negative sense, but they're going to feel gratitude. Thank you, man. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the more influence you have, you can be like, yeah, man, I can
Yeah.
here. So it's a powerful thought. A powerful, powerful thought.
And just linked to that as well, I think part of the reason why I almost never thought of like leaving church or anything like that, I think it's probably linked to that as well. I think I thought, yes, I'm doing all these things like in the back that no one can see, but I think in my mind I thought, yeah, but I have to stay in church because this is what's making God love me. Like, because I'm doing this, this is what's making God, like, this is the reason why God still loves me.
Right.
So I think even though, yes, I've stayed in the church as long, all my life, part of it has been that, oh yeah, I'm doing it because I know this is what's right, and I know this is what I'm meant to do. So let me do this to win God's love. Even now I know that can't be done.
Man, that's so. I'm glad you said that, because the importance of understanding the battle for your mind. What you've just told me right there shows me you've gone through a battle of the mind. It was a battle of the mind, because though bodily you were there, and outwardly we will commend that. If we don't know the facts, we don't know the battles, we're like, well done, you've been a faithful Christian, and you're sitting there going, boy, if only you knew what goes on upstairs.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so grateful and encouraged by this, because it's showing us you can't judge outwardly. You don't know what is happening in the heart. You just don't know. Stop making these assumptions about especially our Christian youth. I say Christian youth, those who grew up in the church. Stop making these assumptions. Real battles. Yeah. Put on a brave face. They performing. They bringing the Bibles and doing what you may ask them to do at the front. Read a scripture or sing a nice, lovely song. But inside they may be struggling. And though the transition may be made and the battle may be won and the body never left the building and they kept faithful, but there was a time which they didn't even understand God's love for them.
Yeah.
They didn't get it. And I'm getting that from your story, that you've gone through the same battle as anybody else. It may be physical for somebody in the sense of, there's a physical transition. Like, I'm not hanging around with these people, or I'm stopping doing this, or I stop going here. These are kind of blatant milestones people can measure to see improvement.
Yeah.
But let's say, like you said, you've always claimed the Christian faith because you've genuinely believed, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's good. And that should be seen as a good thing and a powerful thing. But then the battle of the mind, the thoughts of how you see yourself, how you view God. But I'm going to stay in church because, that's what's making God love me. That because when it's going to keep you, so I need to feel myself clearly to you how I really am. So, man, that's powerful, mate. Yeah, that's powerful. All right, so we kind of covered some of my questions I was going to ask. Really. So final thoughts, Abigail. Final thoughts to the viewers now. You're speaking to anybody watching, who is watching and will be watching. Like they watch the replays, what have you. What thoughts? What encouraging words would you give them? And I want to be specific to the viewers I'm speaking to. They don't go to church. They probably don't even have grown up in a Christian, or maybe they have and they know somewhat about God. Something is calling them. Something is working in their lives for something that this world cannot give. How would you encourage them? Final thoughts to our viewers. What would you say to them?
Oh.
I know this wasn't on my list that I gave you. It's okay. Just don't be hard, and I'll put on the spot. This was on the spot now.
I think I would say, wait, repeat some of it again, please. Sorry.
Yeah, my questions are long as well. because I'm thinking on the spot too. So final words to the viewers, those who are searching, they're willing, they're open. That's why they're here. That's why they're watching. They don't call themselves Christian. They may have never attended the church. They may have tried church. It's not working, but they're really interested in getting to know about, they don't even know what they need to know. They might be just searching for something. See, and and I believe what the answer and the solution is Jesus, love. They need to recognize that somehow. So how would you encourage those viewers watching us right now?
I think I would say, like, whatever stage you are at, so whether it's like you totally don't know what you're searching, you're searching for something, but you're not quite sure what it is, or if you are searching for God, but it's a real struggle to like even getting there. One thing that encourages me, even though yes, I've been in the church, but this thought still encourages me anyway, knowing that God is willing to how do I phrase it? He has been willing to guide me even when I thought I kind of already knew what the path was. So you might be like thinking, okay, I know I'm searching for something. Maybe it's this, like maybe it's this, maybe it's so let me go this way. Like God is willing to guide you regardless of what you might think. Okay, is it this? And whatever point you are at, I think that's it. Whatever point you are at, he's willing to meet you there. So whether it's, as I said, whether it's total new to this Christian thing, totally new to the concept of God, he's willing to meet you at that point. You don't need to start like, okay, I need to get through the Bible, I need to read it all. God's like, well, actually, you really don't. Like, I will meet you. Like, chill. Like, I'll come to you. So I think that's what I would share with people. Like, don't fret. Don't be that. Yes, it is a battle, but at the same time, God is willing to come to you and meet you where you are to actually take you where he wants you to be.
Wow, 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 wow. Tears are coming to my eyes because Claire said this, Andrew's echoed this, Jonathan has echoed this, you're echoing the same thing, and none of you are liaising with each other. That message of, I don't even want to ruin it. It's just, you heard it, people. You heard what Abigail has said. Through her journey, that's what she's communicating. So Abigail, this would be really, 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 really good. Really, really good.
Thank you.
This has been powerful, 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 powerful. Yeah, I have to hold back the tears. I don't want to cry. I'm supposed to be the host. To hold it down. Someone's got to hold it down. It's like, I always say, both me and my wife are scared of spiders, right? But someone's got to hold it down, isn't it?
It's true.
So I'm the one who holds it down. If I had the choice, I'd be like, I ain't touching that. It must be crazy. Me touch spiders. Hey, my manlyhood is not being questioned right now, so I don't care. It's a spider. Do you know what I mean? They're touching spiders. Because she's scared, and it's funny, they're more scared of spiders than I am. But I'm still scared. So I have to get the spider. We've got a spider cup because it's got a spider logo on it. And it's dedicated, it's consecrated to catching spiders, and a spider card. It's just some piece of card that someone put in the letterbox for a discount for MIDLANDS or something. We just kept that. So we've got a consecrated cup and a consecrated piece of card to catch spiders. And I have to do the dirty work. So
hold it down.
We've got to hold it down because I'm the host, innit? You do all the crying, man. I just do the But yeah, it's been encouraging. Powerful, powerful. And I really hope, viewers, that you were moved, you were touched. It didn't just hit up here in your mind, but it hit down here in your heart. So reach out to us. Please join us for tomorrow evening, same time, same place, same Facebook page if you're watching from YouTube Live as well. And I don't have to beg you to share this with people because I'm a firm believer if we're serving good food, you're going to come again and you're going to invite your friends to our restaurant, so to speak. So I'm only going to say share it just to give you a reminder, but I'm not going to beg you and be like, come on, please, 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 and all be all sweaty and be like, oh, please, please, no. Share it, please, with your friends, your family, comment, like our page, and you see my email address on there. If there's any questions, Because look, potentially we can do a part two, because this is all about the views, all about you. Are there questions you have for a certain speaker? Are there things that you said you want us to elaborate on this? Are there thoughts that they've, kind of resonated with you in your journey? So I want that aspect to kind of be unfolded a little bit more. This is about the journey of each speaker, and you, because you might be on the exact same journey in the exact same way, or the same journey but not in the exact same way. But you want us to talk about these things some more, a place where you feel comfortable, you resonate what's being said. And in fact, some of you are going to be like, this is an actual answer to my prayers. I've been praying for this. Some of you haven't been literally praying, but thinking about these things, thinking about these thoughts. Some of you didn't even realize some of these thoughts. It was actually God working on your heart. And I love what Abigail said. God will meet you where you are at. Oh, how understanding and kind that is, to not force feed a child, so to speak. A child has to be on breast milk, and then food has to be blended up before you can put them in certain foods, because there's a time and a process before the digestive system can take what it needs to take. It's interesting how if you feed a child the wrong good food, but at the wrong time, potentially kill them. I think there's a lot to be said in that spiritually as well. And I think God is the perfect example, and he knows when to introduce to you into your system at certain times the things that you can take. So he's very, very patient. That's what I got from Abigail's closing comments. So that's me. We're out. Thank you very much for watching, and God bless you. And hopefully, God willing, we will see you tomorrow evening, same time, same place. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you.